All right. What's up, guys? So, I wanted to hop on today and send out my congratulations to Rick Doblin, to everybody at MAPS PBC, Public Benefit Corp, and congratulate them especially to Rick, for just an unbelievable amount of perseverance to stick with something that he truly feels and knows helps individuals, which is psychedelic assisted therapy, mainly MDMA assisted therapy, where he stuck it out for almost 3 or 4 decades now. I'm aging you, but just a huge congratulations to MAPS PBC, because today they submitted what's called an IND, excuse me, what is called an NDA, a new drug application, and they submitted that to the FDA after decades of studies, 2 decades specifically of studies and research into the safety and the efficacy of MDMA assisted therapy for PTSD, or post traumatic stress disorder. So, congratulations to you, and congratulations to anybody that is suffering with PTSD. If you're any of the 9.8 million people in this country a year, which is most likely underreported, that suffers from PTSD, then you have new hope, because in 6 to maybe 14 months, the FDA may approve this therapy, which is over 12 weeks, 90 plus hours of talk therapy, and 3 administrations of the actual drug, as a new therapy. And man, do people need it, because the next best therapy for PTSD is something called Paxil, which works anywhere from 5 to 9% of the time, and creates things like suicidal thoughts and all of the other pharmaceuticals and synthetics on the market that seem to exasperate other symptoms. So then you have to get another drug for those, and have to maintain or manage symptomology for the rest of your life rather than be cured. And let me be very clear. What we are talking about here is a cure for PTSD. Their phase 3 confirmatory studies cured people 71% of the time. Their first phase 3 results were curing people of PTSD, meaning they no longer met the criteria of having PTSD 67% of the time, as opposed to the placebo group. So in these trials, you have to have 2 groups. One gets a sugar pill, the other gets the actual drug, and then the effectiveness is measured between these two control groups, and then effectively the FDA deems if it had a significant result in lessening the symptoms of depression, et cetera. In this case, PTSD. So in the placebo group, they were using talk therapy, the same talk therapy that they use in the MDMA assisted therapy group, except this group got a sugar pill instead of the actual MDMA. And that result was 32% of them no longer met the criteria for PTSD. Pretty stark. And I think that's just an understanding of how well talk therapy works. And let's dive into maybe why this drug or medicine, whatever you want to call it, works so well adjacent or with assisted therapy or talk therapy. It's because MDMA goes into the brain and shuts down the part of the brain that's called the amygdala. And the amygdala is where we hold basically all our fears, or our fear response to something that was emotional, like a trauma. So you can imagine a lot of the participants in these studies were veterans. They were sexual abuse survivors, both men and women, and people with serious trauma. A post-traumatic stress diagnosis comes when an event in your life happens and you're not able to move past that trauma, and it starts to govern your life. For example, like a veteran who was in war, any loud noises or a balloon pops at a birthday party, it triggers them, and they immediately feel as if they are back in that situation again. I realize now that I probably had some suffering of PTSD from some of my hits to the head or fights that completely changed who I was, or who I thought I was, and how I perceived this world. But this routine, again, is over 12 weeks. And once the medicine gets administered to you over the course of 3 administrations, then it has the ability to shut down my fear response or a fear response in therapy, so that, for example, a veteran is able to talk about the things that they did in war, to talk about the things that happened if a sexual abuse survivor was traumatized by a family member, friend, somebody, a stranger. Then they're able to talk and access this type of healing without that heightened spike of emotion. Our bodies have an amazing ability to protect us from the things that it knows will cause damage, and that includes trauma. And that's one of the big reasons why our subconscious being so powerful, that people have to be in talk therapy for the rest of their lives, because I believe, like, not a lot of them are able to actually access and relive and then move past the trauma that is governing their life. MDMA goes in, shuts down that fear response enough for people who've prepared with 2 therapists along the preparatory sessions, so that these therapists can understand your trauma. Because once you take the MDMA, you're most likely going to relive this trauma. You're going to talk through this trauma with these 2 therapists in the room, and you're hopefully, by the end of the 3 administrations in the 12 weeks, 71% of these people no longer qualify for this PTSD diagnosis, because they've been able to relive, talk through, and then integrate. There's talk therapy after each session and ongoing, I'm sure, and understand that they can move past this trauma and it does not have to govern the rest of their life. They do not have to be on a medication for the rest of their life to manage these symptoms. So a really great analogy that I saw was in America, in the system, and same in Canada, I'm from Canada originally, people are jumping into the river at the top. And if you're at the bottom of the river, you're not noticing why they're jumping in. And these people are jumping in, they're coming down the river, and we're pulling them out. We're giving them something that's temporary. Then they're walking back and they get back into their life, and then they jump back in. And it's this cyclical cycle. And that's what the pharmaceutical companies want us to be beholden to, because if you cure somebody of PTSD and put them back into society and have them be an operating individual, and they're no longer, say, on Paxil or Wellbutrin or the Zoloft or the Ambien to help them to sleep for the rest of their life, well, that's a real problem for the system, because so much revenue comes from this healthcare system, and now this mental healthcare system. 1 in 10 Americans are on an antidepressant or an SSRI by the age of 12, which is remarkable to think about, but it makes a lot of sense. And so when we're talking about the river analogy, let's go to the top of the river. MDMA, we're going to stop pulling people out, and we're going to stop them from jumping in the river. And the way that we're going to do that is to talk to an individual, give them a substance that helps them process and access and talk about this trauma, so that they do not have the desire to jump back in the river. And I think that's remarkable. I'm biased because I was able to save my life, both with psilocybin as well as a really profound ayahuasca experience in Tarapoto, Peru in 2020. But I've seen the way that this impacts people. I've seen the way that not only has it impacted the individual who recovers from the trauma, but their family members, their friends. I've seen people turn their lives around and become really high operating people back in society, where before, like myself, they felt like they were a shell of themselves and that they couldn't go on, and they had no reason to go on. It reinvigorates the spirit. It reignites the brain and parts of the brain. It has cognitive benefits, and it's just a remarkable tool. And it's a great day. I think it's a great day for everybody who works within this industry. Obviously, I think a lot of people out there know how passionate I am and what I'm doing in this industry to try to expand access for everyone. So MDMA being an experiential medicine similar to ketamine, there's only 2,400 or 2,500 ketamine clinics in America or across North America. And this is an experiential medicine. So MDMA, ketamine, psilocybin coming down the road, this will never be a drug where you're allowed by the FDA to take a pill and then take it every morning, because it does make you hallucinate and you have to be in a controlled set and setting in order to have a great experience. We've all seen the people who've taken too high a dose of mushrooms at a party and have the so-called bad trip. If you're not in the right set, which is your intention, why you're doing it. If you're not very clear on that, if you're not in the right setting, which is the environment which you're taking it in, then you could just have some really bad experiences. And so, being in these controlled set and settings is really important. And then having the dose managed is really important. And then understanding the person's trauma is extremely important. If those things can all be managed and handled correctly by an individual and a professional, then you can be cured and you can no longer have these traumas govern the rest of your life. And you no longer need to be a slave to the pharmaceutical industry for the rest of your life. And you can start enjoying life. You can shift your perspective on life. And I describe it as giving somebody new eyes for which we see the world, because our childhoods, our traumas, our teenage years, our successes, our failures all help us view this world, and they dictate the way that we interact with individuals on a daily basis. And they dictate our relationships. They dictate with our kids, with our spouses, with our friends, family members. They dictate our business abilities. And so if we're able to tweak these, then I just think that it's great for humanity. So I hope that this explains a little bit of the importance of today. And again, to Rick, you really changed my life when I met you at SOAP back in 2019 after I was feeling better after using mushrooms, high doses, low doses, and you really helped push me into We Sauna Health, which has then helped push me into a bunch of different lanes and helped me meet some really just amazing people. So thank you to you, to everybody at MAPS who works so diligently and hard, to everyone at MAPS Public Benefit Corp, and to anybody working in this space of wellness and healing to try to help people, to help reinvigorate their spirit and their zest for life again. Thank you to you as well. Be in touch.